Come, let us explore this dawn's meditation class and group practice that we too could meditate like a Jedi. This morning's lesson is drawn from the 37th passage of the meditation classic, The Unknowing Victory Banner, composed oh so many centuries ago by the great Buddhist reformer Vajra. Together let us relaxingly recite. Even if one visualizes oneself with wrathful attributes in a Mahayoga mandala by taking the form of the Lord of Wrath, Heruka, and recites the Anuyoga seed syllables of the mantra, one will not experience the tranquility of Atiyoga reality itself. And as they say on South Park, what? So, in the practice of Buddhist Tantra, it has been said that there are three styles of practice. There is the Maha Yoga that emphasizes ritual and visualization. There is the the Anu Yoga of energy work. And then there is the Ati Yoga of simply cooperating with our autonomic nervous system to notice and relax. Now, the majority of contemporary tantric meditation teachers, especially in the Tibetan tradition, will try to combine all three. However, there was the great Vajra taught against that. He taught that Mahayoga, ritual and visualization, was problematic, and contrived energy work was also problematic, and that the most efficient way, the most potent way of practicing was also the easiest and the quickest, and it is available to everyone. While many contemporary Tibetan teachers of Buddhist Tantra are very elitist and saying, oh no, Hatha Yoga is for special people who've jumped through all these prerequisites. Gaurab Dorje, or as he was known in Sanskrit, Vajra, said, no, this is for everyone, and it's very quick. And that harkens back to the Buddha's original teachings. In the Buddha's discourse on the four bases of mindfulness, he explained that one could master his path, and mastering the Buddha's path is a fancy way of saying become enlightened. One could master the Buddha's path in as little as 7 days. So for a quick moment, what I'd like to do is switch over to a visual aid. By the way, the teaching text and the visual aids are available for free download. Everything I do is free. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks. What could that suckiness look like? It could look like most of us being raised and being conditioned to be little adherents of Yang's religious patriarchy, being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. But the Buddha and Lao Tzu and the Christ offered us a path to transition, to shift lanes to that of Yin's spiritual matriarchy, of being flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. According to the Buddha, according to Lao Tzu, and if you have a concordance of the Old and New Testaments, there are some passages in the Bible that infer that the quickest way to shift lanes is by using something that some people call Hatha Yoga. And here's how it works. By the way, those Majority of teachers who are rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel will often, with the utmost of sincerity, implore their students to over-focus and over-analyze. They might call that concentration and contemplation. They might call that samatha and vipassana, or if you prefer the Tibetan pronunciation, the Sanskrit pronunciation, Shyamata and Vipassana. Same idea. The problem is that overworking our medial and dorsolateral prefrontal cortex causes us to present with symptoms of depression, as well as triggers our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression, which are antithetical to the contentment and compassion that is the fruit of cooperating with both facets of our autonomic nervous system. You see, when we do, not only do we calm our amygdala, we gently stimulate our anterior cingulate gyrus, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seed of empathy, which, like the philosopher's stone of lore, transforms avarice into love and aversion into compassion, which is a pretty cool trick. So how do we do this? How do we cooperate with both facets of our autonomic nervous system? Every time we inhale, we have evolved to automatically access the sympathetic aspect of our autonomic nervous system, which can be likened to a small number of books, just kind of balancing in the middle of an empty bookshelf. This region has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way, to help us to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, which, as you might have guessed, is the opposite of concentration. What have we evolved to notice? We have evolved to notice, all manner of phenomena. From the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque, including sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, including emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. That's a bushel of things that we can notice. What are we to do with all those things? Every time we exhale, we have already evolved to automatically access the parasympathetic aspect of that same autonomic nervous system. Remember, we talked about the idea of a few books placed in the center of an empty bookshelf. When I was a little boy, I was given bookends, little pieces of furniture that are meant specifically to hold up both ends of the book so they don't tip over. That's what the parasympathetic nervous system kind of reminds me of. It has evolved to support both our physical relaxation and mental release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and even less defining. Now, if you're more comfortable with figures of speech, think of it this way. With each exhalation, we have evolved to physically relax and mentally release that which we noticed during our previous inhalation, as if it was as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Now, any good English teacher will remind us that a simile is only as useful as it is relatable. So we have to ask, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn? which although could look non-graspable, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, feels non-graspable to the hand. Now, I've just given you a whole bunch of words, but it can be useful to have a hook to hang our hat on. So what's the easiest, most efficient way of playing, of cooperating with our autonomic nervous system? Every time we feel our diaphragm pull in and down during our inhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this, thus passively noticing mind's antics. Every time we feel our diaphragm relax and return to its upright position, we could silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb is, thus automatically relaxing into mind's non-graspable nature. Having completed our opening lesson, we can now shift gears. It is General Leo Organa's Saturday morning. Let us meditate like a Jedi after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is the Dzogchen Sente Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of, oopsie, that's the wrong. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let's together as a team practice mindfulness and meditation. The most efficient way for us to keep track of our first collection of 144 inhalations is for us to rest the first knuckle at the base of our right index finger upon the tip of our left index finger, palms up in our lap. To keep track of our next 12 inhalations, we could make use of the 3 sets of creases found on each of the 4 fingers of our right hand. We could use the 3 sets of creases found on each of the 4 fingers of our left hand to keep track of the 12 sets, 12 inhalations each. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. For I tend to check for questions about once every 5 minutes or so. Having already sat for the better part of 20 minutes, it may be advisable to adjust your legs before they fall asleep. Welcome to the final third of this morning's group practice. The essence of mindfulness is to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly watch mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. The essence of meditation is to relax into mind's non-graspable nature. The easiest way to do this is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this as we feel our diaphragm pulling in and down during our inhalation. And then to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease as we feel our diaphragm relax and retract during our exhalation. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about every 5 minutes or so. The easiest way to keep track of our second collection of 144 inhalations is for us to rest the second knuckle of our right index finger upon the tip of our left index finger, palms up in our lap. The easiest way to keep track of a set of 12 inhalations is to use our thumb to count the 3 sets of creases found on each of the 4 fingers of our right hand. We could count the 3 sets of creases on each of the 4 fingers of our left hand to count 12 sets of 12 inhalations each. The easiest way to practice mindfulness is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this as our diaphragm feels as if it pulls in and down during our inhalation. The most efficient way to practice meditation is to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease as our diaphragm relaxes back up during our exhalation. As Obi-Wan Kenobi said to Luke Skywalker upon the Millennium Falcon, "You have taken your first step into a much larger world. And now as I say to you, If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.